Ding, ding for the bell, or clang for the bell. It depends on your bell of choice. Anyway, welcome to the Friendly Westwood Village Rotary Club. And here's our banner. Okay, next page. And our 4-way test. Let's see now. I'm looking over everyone there. Mark Rogo.
Yes.
Why don't you cite the 4-way test for the members?
Oh, come on.
You can read it, Mark, so it's not that hard.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will Tom Barron get a haircut? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
That's the Mark Rogo 5-way test. Okay. Thanks, Mark. All right. And our pledge today will be led by Jim Crane. Jim, want to lead the pledge, please? Muting Jim.
Okay.
You're muted, James. James, you're muted.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim. Next, I believe past President Marcia Hunt will give today's thought for the day.
Thank you, past President Steve. Well, in lieu of the fact that Monday is Martin Luther King Day, I thought I would look up some things about him. And I found a gazillion quotes from him that I thought were very pertinent to Rotary. One is, the time is always right to do the right thing. Another, we may have all come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. I thought I'd use that one maybe when I speak about the environment, a different group that I'm doing tonight. I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And another one, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And this one next one I thought was definitely for Rotary. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Thank you, past President Steve.
Thank you, Marcia. Appreciate that. I wonder if Martin Luther King Jr. was a Rotarian.
I don't know. I thought about that. I can try to look that up. Well,
yeah, he epitomizes what a Rotarian. He epitomized what a Rotarian was.
I think his greatest quote was to judge man by the content of their character, though.
Mm-hmm.
And not the color of their skin. I agree.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Marcia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, I believe, is the song of the day, Taya. And we saw it there briefly. Past President Ed, would you like to lead us in today's song, please?
Ed, you're muted.
Okay. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Ed. That was very nice. Appreciate that. Okay, any guests of Rotarians today? I don't think we have any guests. We do have our Rotaractor here today. So
Hi, did you want me to introduce myself? Oh wait, you're muted, by the way.
oh,
Steve.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, Sarah, please do. Oh,
Oh, well, I was able to come last week, and I just my name is Sarah Huang. I'm a second year from UCLA, and I'm just here on behalf of the UCLA Rotaract, and I'm a board member for the public relations.
I see. I see. Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful. Welcome again. Great to see you. Sarah, I got a question to ask you. Did you attend last night's Rotaract meeting?
I wasn't able to. I had some other things to. Oh wait. Rotaract meeting. Yes, I was able to. It's actually really cool.
Yeah, Chris Gaynor spoke, didn't he, and his son Scott?
Mm-hmm.
Chris, are
It's
you on?
very
you-
informational.
I was gonna have Chris speak a moment about it. Could you speak a minute about what Chris and Scott did last night for the presentation they made?
Yeah, I really thought I thought it was cool that it was a father-son duo. But the cool thing is that they were talking about finances, and I think finances are really important because it's something that is not talked about in high school or even in college, which is really weird because it plays a huge role in our life eventually, but we just don't know what we're doing. So then Chris and Scott were telling us like the different things about like what's an asset, what's a debt, what's good debt, what's bad debt, and then eventually like going to like long-term planning and such. Unfortunately, we ran out of time for the meeting, so whoever had to go, and I was one of those people that did need to go for other reasons. But some other people did stay, and I think a lot of the people within our club asked a lot of questions and had a lot of their questions answered in great depth. So a lot of us have a lot more new knowledge that we can apply to our lives realistically.
Sounds great. I know Chris wanted to participate in today's meeting, and unfortunately, he's at a CPE seminar. I thought the guy retired, but anyway, he's at a CPE, continuing professional education seminar. He was hoping to break away for a few minutes, but I guess maybe all the new tax laws are keeping him busy. But anyway, thank you for summarizing that. I know Chris and Scott were real excited about having that opportunity to speak before the Rotaractors last night, because it is important. Those are all very important things to discuss with all the students of the Rotaract Club. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on. And okay, announcements. Our next district breakfast is on the 25th, a couple of weeks, and it'll be through Zoom. You should get an email inviting you to sign up for it in the days to come. Or if you want, you can just go right to the District 5280 website and register for the district breakfast. It's from 8 to 9. You can wear your slippers and your bathrobe. So anyway, hopefully a lot of us will be participating. Next is the humanitarian trip to Puerto Rico. Mark, if maybe you can speak a moment or two. I think you said there's still openings, or is that the case?
Mark, you're muted.
Mark.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. My wife puts that on automatically. There are still openings. It promises to be a terrific trip with a great post trip as well. There are 9 projects on this. Very interesting: education, clean water, and I forgot the third area of focus. It's going to be, you know, one of the memorable ones because we skipped it last year, and so everybody's all pent up, ready to go for this year. So not too late to sign on if you still want to go.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. And next, Tom, maybe a quick word about our in-person meetings at the Leskin Center, timing on that, and maybe even share the thought we talked about at the board meeting a couple of nights ago about Guidos.
Yes, right now I was in contact with the Leskin Center yesterday, the day before yesterday, and we outlined a startup that we're looking at March 3rd for our first meeting. We've got a few questions of that about the size of the room, et cetera, like that, but we straightened most of that out. Looks like March 17th might be a special event we have coming, but we have to hold off on that for to confirm that. But that might be an event with the spouses. It'll be a special event. So, but anyway, we're scheduled for March 3rd, Thursday, for lunch at the Leskin Center. of course, we'll be handing out more information or emailing everybody about the first meeting. So
Any comment about Guidos, or is it a little bit too soon to talk about that?
John has his hand up, by the way, if you want to recognize him. You're on mute, John.
Yeah, sure, John, go ahead.
Tom, I just wanted to ask, when we go back to the Leskin Center in March, is it going to be first and third live and then second and fourth Zoom, or how's that going to work?
That's exactly what. We'll lay out a schedule for the entire rest of the year, because Leskin needs to know that as well. They're getting fairly booked up because there's been such a delay with the pandemic that they'll booking various rooms rather rapidly here. So it'll be the first and third, but we'll let everybody know the schedule.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And again, regarding Guidos, I thought the idea was kind of intriguing that we talked about at the board meeting as a potential intermediate action.
I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't.
Guido's Restaurant, maybe, since I think we all had a good time at the holiday luncheon. We were thinking of maybe if COVID tapers off, as it looks like it might be on the verge of doing that, we've reached the peak, that maybe in February, if it's safe, and knowing that we won't be back at the Leskin Center until March, that maybe we would have a meeting at Guido's again, a lunch.
We could if there was such demand for it, but to arrange it at this time, I think we'll just stick with the Zoom meetings until March 3rd. Listen.
Right. But if things, I'm the eternal optimist. So if things turn to the positive, maybe that's something that the board can take up and then bring to the members. I do notice we have some new participants. James Tran from UCLA. Hi, James, member of Rotary.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And then we also have Leah Vidra. Hi, Leah. How are you?
Hi, pleasure to be here as well.
Welcome. Okay. And then I have on our announcements, the Pageant of the Arts will be March 19th, I understand. And Phil, is there any word you want to share with the members of the regarding the Pageant of the Arts? And you're on mute.
Not yet. I'm probably for the next meeting, I'll have information for you.
So what you're looking for obviously would be judges. So you'll be reaching out to members for.
Yeah, I haven't determined, or I don't know if the district's determined if it's going to be Zoom or it'll be in person. I don't know if the campuses will allow outsiders on the campus yet. Even for the rest of the year. So it might be Zoom again, but let me delve into that further, and by next Thursday I'll have an update for you.
Thanks, Phil. Are there other announcements that anyone wishes to make at this time? No? Okay, very good. Let's move on. All right, Rotary birthdays and anniversaries. We have some birthdays this month. Pat Anderson, January 4th. Our past president, Ron Leister, who's also our scribe for today, January 8th. And David Stover on January 27th. We have some wedding anniversaries. Diane Good and Frank Smith, 32 years. And Phil Gabriel and Lisa Chapman, 25 years. Congratulations to Phil and to Diane. Pass on the good word to Frank and Lisa. And then Rotary anniversaries. Got several Rotary anniversaries this month. Mike Newman, 36 years. Kurt Smith, 34 years. Richard Thompson, 33 years. 31 years, my gosh. Time goes fast. Me, 31 years. Dwight Heckler, 14 years. Tam Bailey, 8 years. And Ziba Najad, 4 years. Congratulations to all our Rotarians celebrating their Rotary anniversaries this month. Congratulations. Okay. One thing that I would always do the year I was president was on this day. So on this day, January 13th, in 1928, RCA and GE installed 3 TVs in Schenectady, New York. It was the first public demonstration of television. It delivered, though, a poor and unsteady 1.5 square inch picture. 1968, actually, that's a mistake. It should be 38. 1938, no, excuse me, it's 1930. I don't know what happened. It should have been 30. But anyway, 1930, Mickey Mouse comic strip first appears. And in 2012, the Costa Concordia sunk off the coast of Italy, killing 32 people. Birthdays this month. 1832, Horatio Alger. He was an American clergyman and author, and he wrote those books for young folks, showing people starting in short means, growing up and becoming successful people, kind of rags to riches stories. Actress and dancer Gwen Verdon. She was in movies such as and on Broadway, like Damn Yankees and Chicago and all that jazz, Follies. She was quite an actress, married to Ray Fosse. And then Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who's best known for Seinfeld, and also that funny comedy on HBO called Veep. So it was her birth. She was born in 1961. And continuing with births, unfortunately, the circle of life, we have some deaths. So people who died on this day was Wyatt Earp, the old West lawman, OK Corral, Irish author James Joyce, 1941. Author, probably his best known work is Ulysses. It's I've never attacked it. I don't know if anyone on our Zoom today has read Ulysses. It's a book regarding one day in the life of an Irish worker. And then in 1978, Hubert Humphrey, 30th vice president, excuse me, which he was the vice.
You're muted, Steve.
Anyway, I don't know where you stopped hearing me, but I was just mentioning Hubert Humphrey was the 38th vice president. He was LBJ's vice president. 1964, he was elected, and he ran against Nixon in 68. And it was a very close election. I think it's the first election that I remember sitting up late watching. And because the results did not come in until late in the evening. I was living in New Jersey at the time. And so it was late at night that Richard Nixon was declared victor of that election. So continuing on, it's time that we introduce our speaker. And I'd like to have John O'Keefe do the honors of introducing Janet Marinaccio, President and CEO of MEN. John, if you please.
I've been having a little trouble today, incidentally, in the audio. Occasionally, the sound, I don't know if anybody else is having that problem, but I lose my sound every once in a while here. But anyway, it's okay now, I hope. Janet, are you on the call? Janet?
Yes, I am, John.
Oh, yeah, I was worried. There she is. Yeah. Listen, before I introduce Janet, don't be offended by this, guys, but last week when I was talking about trivia, and basically it was all trivia, I neglected to mention something which is very important in the topic about making a perfect martini. I never mentioned that gin, the type of gin you have is very important. And you have to have a good quality gin, particularly one that tastes like juniper berries, because martinis are gin is supposed to taste like juniper berries. And there's a number of very great gins out there that don't taste like juniper berries. The most famous of which is Bombay. Bombay is a very good gin, but it does not taste like juniper berries. In order to make a perfect martini, you need one that tastes like juniper berries, i.e. Tanqueray, or maybe Hendrix, or maybe juniper. And then you have to have a good quality Italian vermouth. I use Martini and Rossi. Okay, I'm through with that now. Now you know how to make a perfect martini. So anyway, Janet Marinaccio has been a friend of mine for a number of years. She's the president and the CEO of an organization that I was very heavily involved with on the board some time ago, and still have some involvement with them. That stands for, it's an acronym, stands for Meet Each Need with Dignity. She joined MEND in 2017. She's been in the public service businesses like this for about 35 years. She worked for over 16 years at Goodwill Industries. And at Goodwill, she was in senior management there and served them for many, many years. She was also the chief operating officer of a firm called Extraordinary Families, which provides safe and nurturing homes for children and youth who have experienced abuse and neglect. She has a master's degree in psychology / marriage and the family from Phillips Graduate Institute, a bachelor's degree in education from Niagara University, and a certificate in program design and evaluation of the University of Illinois at Chicago. This is a great story to tell, and Janet's going to go back into the history of MEND, which goes back into the late 1960s up until the present, and it's a very good story and one worthy of our attention and maybe even of our donations. Anyway, Janet, you're on now, and thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't have a presentation. I don't know, can we go to seeing everybody's faces so I can see who's here? That would be lovely. Thank you. Let me change my view to gallery. Yay, I can see everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, John. And thank you to all of you for allowing me to join you and to talk a little bit about MEND. There's a lot to tell, and I'm going to try and do it as succinctly and clearly as possible. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. As John mentioned, I've been doing this work a really long time, and it truly is a passion for me. Helping people who are struggling. I grew up back east in a working class family, and our family didn't struggle the way some of the families that MEND serves does, but I do relate and understand sort of the day-to-day worries that people have, and I'm happy to be able to help folks with it now. So as John mentioned, MEND started probably sort of unofficially in the late 60s, but by 1971, our founders, Ed and Carolyn Rose, and a group of their friends who they knew through church, got together and they said, we have to help people. We who have so much need to do for those who have less than us. And so they gathered together personal items and clothing and housewares and furniture, and they would distribute them from the Rose's garage. And by the mid 1980s, MEND bought its first property, a building here in Pacoima on on the Van Nuys Boulevard. At that time, it was entirely volunteer run. In fact, Ed has some funny stories about the nuns who were volunteering to lead the work. They were nuns not to be messed with, he said. And Ed and Carolyn are still very active. They're both in their 80s. They're still volunteering and coming in and doing what they can to support our work. They're truly amazing. But by the mid 80s, we had that building. By the late 80s, they hired the first CEO. And by the early 2000s, we bought the building where we sit today. Actually, we bought a piece of land on San Fernando Road in Pierce that at the time had been a trailer park that had not such a great reputation. There was drug dealing and prostitution, and the neighborhood didn't like having it here. And our board wheeled and dealed and got us the property. And we now have a 40,000 square foot, gorgeous, the most beautiful building in Pacoima, if you ask me, here in Pacoima. So, by the time I got here, there was a lot going on. So MEND obviously looks very, very different today than it did 50 years ago, and even 5 years ago when I joined the team. We constantly adapt our services. We're always keeping our ear to the ground about community need, about who else is serving in the community. And we also look at our own capabilities, competencies, and resources to be able to do the work we were doing. And without getting into all the gritty details, when I got here, MEND was struggling. We had financial challenges. We were carrying some debt. We had a line of credit that really was not used the way a line of credit should be used, like as a temporary bridge. It really kind of became part of operating. And so the board and I had some hard work to do and some really hard decisions to make so that we could keep MEND viable. We'd been here at that point for 45 years. We're a trusted anchor in the community. Throughout the first, until the pandemic hit, we had made a lot of really big decisions. We closed some programs that were underperforming, that were costing us a lot of money. We were not able to fundraise. We couldn't be competitive because they were underperforming. And at the point that the pandemic hit, we had just closed, we had a free clinic, a very large free clinic, almost 10,000 square feet, which is a very, very large free clinic. Most of the ones that still exist today, which are hardly any, have like, one or two stations, either exam rooms or dental chairs, depending on the service they're doing, and maybe a few hours a week. And we were trying to operate competitively. And it really became, again, another financial drain. So the week before we were put on lockdown, we had closed our clinic, referred all of our patients out. Everybody got served. There were plenty of clinics in the community. So I'll talk a little bit kind of like where we are now and what services we're providing and where we're headed. How the pandemic has hit us, how we have been working on recovery and where we expect to go next. But I'm going to start with, who does MEND serve? I don't know how well anybody knows Pacoima and the Northeast Valley, but the people that come to us are very low income to extreme poverty. They're unemployed, underemployed. Many work in sort of the non-traditional economy or the shadow economy. They may have a cart, they may vend services, fruit, flowers, things like that. Predominantly Latino, a good portion are immigrants. Almost everybody lives in some form of unacceptable housing. So what does that look like? A garage, not a converted garage, not a granny flat, but a garage with no windows, no heating, no air conditioning. It's really pretty bad. Even Carolyn and Ed share a story about a family that lived in the attic of a garage. They live where they can afford it and be sheltered. Some live in trailers, some live in their cars, some live in lean-tos, some are doubled and tripled up in apartments, meaning there might be 3 or 4 families living in a 3-bedroom apartment. And some are unhoused. We deal with the unhoused chronically homeless as well. The one thing I think I'll say about poverty and what our folks are dealing with is poverty is traumatic. They deal with daily micro traumas. They're in survival mode. It's hard to plan for the future when you're just worried about today. So for example, we have a family of 5 that lives in a concrete garage without heat, air conditioning, windows, or ventilation. Or we may have a single mom who makes constant choices and trade-offs to stretch her meager income, asking herself, do I pay this bill or do I feed my kids? I can't afford to do both. Or the man who's homeless. He's a veteran. He's staying in temporary housing because he's unemployed. He's over 60 and can't find work. And those are examples of the kinds of folks that we serve. They're people with very, very high needs. I'm going to talk about the pandemic, as I said, shortly, but as you can imagine, a community with the struggles and challenges that ours does was hit very hard by COVID. And it brought us newly displaced and struggling people. So our programs, so we've got an array of services right now that we offer. We have our community nourishment programs, which focus on getting food to vulnerable people. So we have our food pantry, which is where we distribute food directly to folks in need. And that is where we have seen upwards of a 400% increase since COVID hit. We have lines that stretch a mile down of cars lining up. Our typical MEND client does not drive a car. Typically they're a bus rider, they're a walker. So all of those we know are people who've lost their jobs, lost their income, lost their resources. And the lines remain. It's pretty incredible. Then we have our food bank. That's where we give food to other organizations, churches, other nonprofits, schools, and then we're able to expand our reach. We serve communities as far north as the Antelope Valley and as far south as South LA through that service. Our Buen Provecho is a farmer's market model. One thing that we think is really important to give people dignity. You know, that's right in our name, right? Meet each need with dignity is choice. So through our farmer's market model, we don't sell anything. It's all no cost, but we display the food in these nice displays, produce, you know, whatever we have a lot of, we put out, and we allow people to take what they need as much as they need. And you might think that people will hoard and take more, and they really don't. It's pretty incredible. Obviously, the pandemic prevented us from doing that for a while, but recently we've moved that service outdoors. One Saturday a month, people are able to come and take part in that. And then we have our little health market. And the purpose of that, again, it's all no cost. The purpose of the little health market is to allow people to have access to alternative options, healthier options. So we will carry brown rice, whole grain pastas, low sodium foods, canned goods, olive oils. And one of our other programs, our Pathways to Wellness, focuses on people who have chronic medical conditions like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, etc. And they're able to shop in the little health market and also get recipes that go with the food that's in there so that they can learn how to prepare new kinds of food that maybe they're not accustomed to traditionally. We also have our Hope and Care program, which started because of COVID. A great opportunity came to us to do initially outreach, giving out information about COVID, about what to do if you are exposed, how to isolate, helping people who live 5 people in a garage figure out how to isolate because they can't go rent a hotel room. They don't have the resources to do it. A lot of our folks just created, you know, kind of makeshift shelters within their living space. That has evolved in continued funding to include what they call concrete support. So what is a concrete support? It's giving the families and people participating in the program things that they literally, concrete things they need, like diapers, wipes, clothing. We can do rental assistance, utility assistance, things that will help people bridge the challenges related to the COVID pandemic. We also have brought in some funding to do vaccine outreach. So we don't do the vaccines directly, but we partner with pharmacies, other clinics. We host vaccine events here. We partner with other agencies. So far, we have helped over 3,800 people get the vaccine in very high need communities, which I'm so ecstatic we've been able to do. You know, there's been so much resistance and people not participating, misunderstanding. And because of men's long-term history, we have the trust of the community. And when we say, come get a vaccine, don't be scared, we'll give you the information that you need. They've been able to participate. They've been encouraged. We also, as I mentioned, we have our Pathways to Wellness program that offers one-to-one support, helping people set goals to manage their chronic condition. We also offer group activities like nutrition classes and exercise classes. Of course, that was disrupted because of COVID, but we're starting to get back to it now. And then our resource coordination, that's where we can connect people up with other resources besides the ones that MEND offers, help them set goals and achieve some change in their lives. So really though, the last 2 years, almost 2 years, as you guys know, it's been COVID, and all the challenges that go with it, you know, not being able to welcome people into our building, having to, you know, translate and help folks understand the challenges. But, you know, it's at times like these that we're reminded that all of life is a paradox. And what matters in the end is how well we care for each other. That's really what MEND is all about, caring for others, even in challenging times, even in the face of uncertainty. Our valley, and in particular, our community, were hit hard by the pandemic. A little over a year ago, Pacoima, where we're headquartered, became the epicenter of the pandemic in all of LA County. I don't know if you all knew that, but we had the highest case rate per 100,000 residents. We actually were covered by the New York Times. I got interviewed by the New York Times to talk about the challenges of Pacoima. That really led us and our board to commit to never wanting to be the first worst anything. We're really focused now on resilience for our community. The already challenging situation that I described to you for so many of the people that we serve really became untenable. For some, having to seek help for the first time ever filled them with shame. People were and are still, as I described, struggling. Through it all, our incredible staff remained resolute in their commitment to serve with dignity and respect, following the example set by our founders, Ed and Carolyn. So let me give you some stats. Since the start of COVID, we've provided essential services across the Valley through an astonishing 1.2 million service encounters. I'm going to say that again. In just under 2 years so far, this is through the end of December. I don't even have January data yet. We have helped people through 1.2 million service encounters. We've distributed over 5 million pounds of food through our community nourishment programs, putting food on the table of thousands of families who might have otherwise gone without. In addition to the food distributions, as I mentioned, we're doing information and resources about COVID, distributing PPE kits, and we're continuing, at least through the rest of this year, facilitating vaccine clinics, or for as long as we're needed and funded. And as I mentioned, we did over 3,800 vaccines so far. The vaccine work started in, when did we start that? In July. So in about 6 months, we've helped 3,800 people get their doses. That's everything from first, second, and booster. We've distributed diapers to families in need, provided a fresh change of clothing to those who are homeless, assisted our clients with accessing funds to help with rent and utilities, and the list goes on. And as I mentioned, we have our one-on-one services. During the peak of it all, they had to go remote. What our goal at that time was to ground people, give them stability as they coped with so much uncertainty. We even delivered bags of healthy food to our clients in Pathways to Wellness because they tend to skew a little bit older. They, were the high risk groups with chronic medical conditions. So we would deliver the groceries to their home doorstep. And we would even do a wellness check to make sure they were on track with some of their health goals. So what's next? Grounded in the philosophy that in every crisis is an opportunity, our board and leadership has taken time to step back and reassess. COVID, the silver lining, if you will, really allowed us to step back and do that and consider the lessons that we learned during this unprecedented time and think about ways to adapt our strategy. As I mentioned, our current strategic plan focuses on resilience. For Mend, we came out of some very challenging financial times. Oh, by the way, we sold our other building. We paid off all of our debt. We now have healthy reserves. We've been raising more money than ever. And part of that was partially due to COVID, but we also expanded into accepting government funds, which was something that in the previous 48 years had never been done at Mend. So we're looking at our resilience, our clients' resilience, and our community's resilience. Based on the data we've collected, the biggest challenges facing our clients are economic instability, food insecurity, and inadequate housing. So as you've heard, we address food instability. As soon as it's safe to do so, we're launching a new program. It's called Here We Thrive, and it moves all of our intensive services under one umbrella. And we're going to add in intensive employment services because at the end of the day, you need an income to increase your economic stability. And the reality is data shows that families, parents who are working, actually their children do better in all aspects as well. I think a lot of it comes from being a role model, having a structure, having a schedule, and showing the children a life as a working person. It can inspire the children as well. But because our clients have such complex issues, we know we can't address them all. We tried to do that once. We had far too many programs. We were a jack of all trades and master of none. We're going to leverage the capabilities of some of our partner agencies in the community. For example, MEND isn't going to get into housing, but housing is one of the biggest challenges facing our families. We know who the great housing providers are. So our goal is to bring them on. Again, when it's safe to reopen the building in a robust way, we'll bring partners in. They'll be able to have access to our clients and be able to provide them with the services that they need. We're looking for partners who really share our goal to create a resilient community. So I'm going to close my remarks and then we can I can take questions. But our founders really did what they did because they wanted to make a difference. And they did that and more, as you've heard. It takes strong ideals, tenacity, and a lot of grit to take on poverty. And it's this example that set the tone for what we want to accomplish going forward. At this critical time, we are focusing on despair. I don't know if anybody's heard that word. It's an old word, but it seems so relevant today. It means a return of hope after a period of despair. So despair is spelled like despair, but with an R. So here's the final thought for you to ponder. Ask yourself, what's the difference I can make now and every day? In the words of my friend Scott Miller, who's the author of a book, Until It's Gone, it is within the grasp of each of us to unleash enormous power to transform our society so that one day no one will ever have to live in poverty again. So thank you, and I welcome any questions anybody has, comments.
Well, thank you very much, Janet. That was very informative. You have a wonderful organization. Do we have any questions from Mike Newman? I see you have your hand up.
I was curious with the food programs you have, are you having to purchase food? Is it coming from restaurants? Do people donate? How do you gather all the food that you're distributing?
We get it through a number of different ways. It's a great question. Thank you for asking it. A majority of our food comes from rescue and recovery. So we may get donations from grocery stores of items maybe that they couldn't sell. You know, sometimes grocery stores will get a pallet of like oranges and they look at it and they're like, oh, some of them are moldy. They'll actually donate them to us rather than taking the manpower to sort through them. So we get a lot of food from that. There's another organization called Food Forward that gleans food, whether it be from a farm, from some people have orchards in their yards. They'll come and take from there. They'll go to farmers markets. We don't get anything from restaurants at this point, but with the new recycling law, we may start seeing that. We did have to purchase food for the first time during the pandemic because there were so many supply chain issues. We were very fortunate to be able to get some grant funds to be able to support doing that, thankfully, because that was not something we had budgeted. We have food drives, be a great Rotary activity. We have corporations that will do it. One of our partners, for example, Valley Presbyterian Hospital, every year does they do a competition within the hospital. Even through COVID, when they were dealing with so much, they still did a food drive. They beat their previous record. But, you know, a lot of organizations, schools will do food drives and get that to us. So we go, you know, we get it through a lot of sources.
Thank you.
Mark, I think you had your hand up, Mark Rogo.
Yeah, what kind of government programs are you now involved in, Janet, that spends off money to the organization?
So right now, the government funding that we're getting comes from a variety of sources, federal, state, and local. It's all been CARES Act and COVID recovery funds right now. We hope to expand that, but for anybody that doesn't know, or maybe you do know this, getting government funds is not easy for a nonprofit. Part of it is you have to have a reputation of spending those funds well, but also you need financial stability, and we didn't have it for a long time. So once we got financially stable, and then it was sort of this merging of opportunities, the pandemic hit, and our first government funded program came through another agency that actually was receiving funds, but they are in South LA. And they called me up one day and said, we know Pacoima is struggling. Nobody's doing this work there. We have enough money to subgrant to you. And that got us going. And once we got going, I have the best team. They are so committed. It's truly amazing. A lot of them are from this area, so they're extra committed to the community. Our results were so good, and our reputation quickly raised up to the state level, where the governor's office selected us to receive some additional funding to do outreach and vaccines. So it kind of snowballed.
Thank you, Janet. Any other questions out there? More questions? John O'Keefe.
Yeah, Janet, how many employees do you have now? And I know you use a lot of volunteers. How many volunteer hours do you have in a year or something like that?
Currently, we have about 42 employees. Some of them are short-term because we have these short-term projects. We have fewer. I don't have the statistics for the volunteers yet. Chania is working on that report and pulling that data. We've had way fewer. I mean, we've had, thousands of volunteers in years past, but the minute COVID hit, it was like, rats jumping from the ship. We had so many cancellations of volunteers that it was a little worrying. We actually redirected all of our staff to help out instead of volunteers for a while. I don't have that figure, but this year it's going to be a lot lower, maybe 500 to 1,000. I mean, normally we have corporate groups coming in, school groups. A lot of them have policies, in fact, that they can't volunteer at this point in time. But I'm going to say this, we're going to be needing more volunteers. One is we reopen, but two, there's that new recycling law you might have heard about, like residents, we have to put all of our recyclable food into our green bins now, even like meat and bones and stuff. For food banks, what we're going to see is more food coming from grocery stores and restaurants and so forth. And we think we're going to need a lot more manpower to sort that out. So, but we've got it. We're also, having to follow social distancing and on and on and on. So if anybody is interested, or if the Rotary group wants to come in sometime and do a volunteer day, you can reach out to me and I'll connect you up with the staff who can set it up.
And how is your fundraising in the community? I mean, do you raise a lot of contributions? You have like a gala, those types of things?
Yeah. So at the point that I came on, we actually had volunteers who were doing a lot of our fundraising, and we shifted that model, brought in a chief development officer who's got phenomenal experience. And she and I actually worked together for a few years simultaneously at Goodwill. So I knew her work ethic and her work output. So we have really built our individual giving program. Like I said, we brought in government funds. We do an annual awards gala. We obviously had to cancel in 2020, and we had that little window this year where we got to have an in-person gala in October. Mm-hmm. We have our gala for 2022 scheduled, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We're going to have it on September 17th at the Skirball Cultural Center. So yes, and we do, foundation fundraising, corporate fundraising. We do a lot with groups that want to sponsor and volunteer. For example, LA Care has done numerous, since the start of the pandemic, since they're a healthcare provider, it was really important for them to get exposure. So they sponsor and then they also volunteer at the same time. So we have lots of opportunities like that.
Very good. Other questions? John O'Keefe?
Yeah. Janet, back about 5 years ago when I was still on the board, 5-6 years ago, you had a couple of clinics, a medical clinic and a dental clinic. And I know you talked about having to close clinics. Did you close both those clinics?
Yes, unfortunately, we had to close them both. It was, I always say a free clinic is not free. They were very expensive to run. We were competing with the other larger federally qualified health centers for funding, and we were losing about $400,000 a year running them. We tried to get another partner to come in, a licensed clinic to come in and take over the space, become a tenant. None of them could pencil out a workable plan. We actually also looked at changing our own license. It would have taken about 1.5 years and about $1 million investment. We just didn't have the funds to do it. So after, gosh, I think we studied it for about 1.5 years. The board voted to move forward with closing the clinics. We've referred clients out, but subsequent to that, there is a local clinic who is right down the street actually, but they're becoming a federally qualified health center. They've leased a portion, about 1,800 out of the 10,000 square feet, to provide medical services, and they will serve our clientele as well.
Yeah, I know those were difficult decisions to close those clinics, but I will say that my observation is that that's what a good administrator has to do, and I think Janet's showing that. I mean, definitely was accurate. I mean, I go to better than his office.
John, you're breaking up. Can you?
So they had to close up some of those, and that's what good administrators have.
John, you're kind of, your signal's getting a little weak there. So we're gonna see what Phil Gabriel had a question. Phil?
So I was wondering if you have you thought about working with Clinical Romero? I think they're kind of in your area.
They are. We do refer folks out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, they were not one of the ones that, so we worked with a contractor who works with all the clinics in the area, and he reached out to all of them. We vetted about 5 to take over the space. We like to say we got to the altar, but we couldn't get to idea with 2 of them. And actually, even after that, there was one more clinic that I approached, the Center for Family Health and Education, and everybody got to the same point. It was going to cost them about $1 million to get the clinic up and running and get the license and all of that. And they couldn't pencil it out. There, within like a 3-mile radius, there were 6 clinics. Within 5 miles, there are 12. And all of these federally qualified health centers are mandated by law to serve anybody, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of if they're a citizen. So it worked out okay. Our clients got referred out. And our plan with the space, well, right now we're using it for all these additional COVID outreach services, but we are leasing space out to, or the goal is to lease it out to other providers of wraparound services that our clients need. Mental health is a big one for our community. So we need to get somebody in here who can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate your answer.
Thank you, Janet. Any other questions from the members to Janet? I guess not. I don't see any other hands raised. As is tradition, Janet, thank you first for a wonderful presentation, and a gift will be made in your honor to the Westwood branch of the Los Angeles Library. Thank you very much. It sounds like you have a wonderful organization, and I hope our club, or maybe a Rotary club closer, will be very involved in doing some of that volunteer work and supporting really a very important organization.
We have a great relationship with Granada Hills Rotary.
Oh, outstanding.
They've been very, very engaged. So
and I'm sorry, go on.
I was just going to say thank you all so much. And if anybody wants to read more about MEND, you can go to our website. I can pop it in the chat if you want, or if somebody wants to.
That'd be awesome.
It's yeah, I'll pop it in, but it's www.mendpoverty.org. So, but I'll pop it in there.
Sounds great. Yeah. Are you a Rotarian, Janet?
No, I'm not. I tried once
with that. Try again.
With the downtown LA Rotary when I was working downtown, but it was really hard for me to get to meetings consistently. So, but I have friends. I'm a Rotarian through friendship. I have a lot of friends who are in Rotary.
Right, you embody what a Rotarian is, so
Thank you.
maybe at some point that might be something that you can consider. Thank you again, wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm going to leave unless
Okay.
you need anything else from me. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you,
Tom,
Janet.
thank
Happy
you
New
for
Year.
inviting me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Taya, can we go back to the the PowerPoint, please? Okay. Okay, a couple of pieces of business. One, Martin Luther King, past President Marcia chatted me, and he was not a Rotarian, but his daughter spoke at the Atlanta Convention a few years ago, where I think Diane heard, or Marcia heard his daughter speak. So he was not a Rotarian, but obviously he would have been he embodied everything a Rotarian should be. And I have a question for John O'Keefe, or a comment. You didn't mention vodka martinis, John.
No, vodka martinis are not martinis.
I see.
Martinis made with gin, period.
Okay, so what happens if somebody
End of the
orders?
question. Don't even
Oh.
consider. Vodka martinis is not a martini.
Okay, fair enough. I prefer vodka. So anyway.
It's okay. Have your vodka. That's fine.
Okay. Anyway, thanks, John. Thank you for that. I kind of thought maybe you would have that extreme attitude, but that's okay. Thanks, John. Okay, anyway, so let's wrap up today's meeting. Again, thanks to Ron for being the scribe, and Taya, again, thank you for administering and co-hosting our meetings. It makes life so easy when one presides to have you in the background there. Thank you so much. Our speaker next week is our new member, Sunda Kronquist.
That's not correct.
Yes?
Can I butt in? Sandra Kuhnquist is not going to deliver a craft talk next week.
Oh.
I don't want to go into the whole story there, but she will not be delivering a craft talk. Our talk next week will be from Ellen Simon, who is a CEO of a nonprofit hearing and speech clinic in Pasadena. She's a member of the Pasadena Rotary Club. She'll be our speaker next week.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update, John. Appreciate it. And past President Marcia will be presiding next week. So with that, any other questions, comments, goodwill? Well, with that, I wish everyone a great weekend, and I officially ring the bell. Oh, wait a minute, I heard somebody.
It's Sally. I wonder if we could have someone from the Griffith Park Observatory come to speak.
That'd be wonderful. John, you got a mission. You find someone.
Who said that?
That's good, Sally.
That was
Sally, I said, call the Griffith Park Observatory and see if someone would speak. I mean, after all, now that we're on, they don't have to come over here to speak. They can speak online. And I think with all the new people going up in space, it would be nice to hear from them.
Sounds good.
Yeah, who is that talking?
That was
said
Sally
that?
Grant.
Sally
Sally
Grant.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to you about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Call me anytime. I'm always home.
Okay, thank you.
Sally. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye, guys.
We are just
Bye-bye.
bye.